This is where the fun begins.
Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose.
King Kong ain't got shit on me!
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the
Everybody
procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Say my name.
And here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, grab your popcorn, get your snacks ready. It's about to get realish. Today I'm being joined again by my esteemed co-hosts. To my left, we've got the Podfather, the OG, the reason why we're all here, my guy Derrick Myers. And then, of course, we're also being joined by the GOAT. He's not Tirao, he's Tirado. Matthew Tirado, please. I'm really excited about today's episode. We're going to sort of talk a little bit about the stuff we've been watching recently, and then just have a little discussion about reboots. There's a lot of talk about a bunch of different series being rebooted, and it feels like every 2 years, right, we end up in this same situation where some of our darlings are getting butchered, right? So have to touch on that for sure. And then finally, we'll get to our feature presentation, which this week is Tetris from Apple TV. But before we get into that, let's go around the horn. Just everyone give their socials. Obviously, off the top, most importantly, make sure you follow the brand at OTS Media Co. on all social media platforms, as well as OTS Media on YouTube. Make sure you're following. You got that notification bell tinged on so that you're always abreast whenever our new episodes are coming up. And then, of course, you could catch me at Negron MMA on Twitter, as well as Chris Negron _.
Sir. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, then let me take this shit off real quick. We're back. Derrick, Chris.
Yes, sir.
It's been a hot minute.
It has.
I'm glad we're back, man. I'm so
Yes,
glad
sir.
we're back. And you can find me over on Instagram, Matt_T29, to discuss anything nerdy related, anything movie related. And of course, I'm ready to get back into it.
Yes, sir. You can follow me at Derrick_OTS. That's DERRICK, the black way to spell it. What's good, guys? It has been a little second. It's been a lot of stuff going on, but I'm glad we're back.
For sure. It's great to be back. Always missed. And I was really looking forward to doing this episode too. I think there's a lot of fresh stuff for us to touch on, and Tetris was an interesting watch to say the least. So I got some hot takes I'm interested to hear you guys' opinions on. But besides that, man, just ready to get right into it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, what you guys been watching?
Great question. I'm glad you asked. So I think for years now I've been telling you, Derrick, Chris, I don't think I've asked you this, but for the longest time I've been asking Derrick to watch a little show called Barry on HBO Max. I've been pestering him both on the pod, off the pod. Still nothing yet. I think we're nearing that point, you know?
Yes. I'm about to get into it. I am about to get into it. Succession is coming to an end. What else is over? I think a couple of other shows I was watching is pretty much over. So I'm about to get into. It's gonna be a nice summer watch, you know.
Yeah, a pretty depressing one too.
Yeah.
I think so. For to contextualize, like, the show is obviously about a hitman who wants to become an actor, but that synopsis doesn't do the entire story justice. I think the transition between season 2 and season 3, especially 3 into 4, is, you know, obviously features quite a bit of comedy, but it also has very gut-wrenching and depressing moments in the show, and is accompanied by some very excellent storytelling, very excellent directing by Bill Hader, and ultimately just a lot of, you know, interesting characters with their own dilemmas. You know, I don't want to obviously spoil in case anyone's interested in watching, but yeah, that's what I've been into. And the other thing is, Derrick, just a show that you wanted me to see, pun intended. I watched the first season.
See,
a week or two ago, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, what did you think?
So it was decent. I think a bit overhated in some respects, but I think there were so many narrative problems where I think you can say like certain things could have been resolved if characters decided to do something episodes before. A prime example, spoiler alert, when I like the twist of Magra, Pablo Voss's wife being of royalty. But if you recall, before the Alchemy were forced to were being pursued by the general and his men, all Magra had to do was literally pull out the bell in episode 2 and literally tell him who she was to save everybody. Like, there's no logical reason for why she just kept that secret in when she could have just, at the very least, revealed it out of purview. And there's a lot of moments like that in the show where it's like, you know, but
let me put it like this. Stuff will be revealed in season 3. Okay, so don't sour on the show for those blanks.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So some things will be filled in for you a little bit later. That I think will tie it together a little bit for you. It's very well done show.
A lot of great sequences though. I think I think back in episode 4 where they're on their way to the Lavender Road, and they're basically like I forgot the general's name, but like his men were like swishing around those ropes. And I really like that how Sorbawa was sort of like very silent, and it's a very like tense scene, obviously, and then one of them ends up getting struck by the rope and then gets pulled into the water, and the others do so.
Let me ask you a question real quick. In terms of the fight choreography, so I told you, to me, the best fight choreography I've ever seen is between Daredevil, the series, and C on Apple TV. Based on the first season that you've seen, can you agree with that? Fight choreography
Wise, I mean, it's definitely up there. I think I have to like look back because I honestly, because honestly, the action stands out because I really don't think there's. I'm assuming season 2, season 3 is when it becomes more action packed, which I didn't go into the show.
Season 2 is crazy.
Season 1,
Dave
I know
Bautista's in it, so it's.
I do remember hearing about that. Yeah, I think I would think he plays his brother, right? Because I know his brother was.
I'm not saying anything. I can't confirm or deny.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. But yeah, no, I think the action was definitely what I appreciated too is that oftentimes you have a lot of cuts. I think we talked about this, all of us, about you could tell when a director doesn't have much experience with action in this show. And for all I know, maybe some of the directors never did, but they do a really great job of having zoom-ins, of really following characters around so that we actually see all their movements. Even a lot of the dialogue sequences are shot that way, where I mean, you have characters, saying 10 plus lines of dialogue in a single frame, and then they cut away. So I appreciate that aspect of filmmaking. It made the show feel more intimate and grounded in a lot of ways. And I also think as well, because since everybody is blind in the world, you very literally have to, like, there's more of an emphasis on their emotions, because we as the audience need to sort of, see how they're responding to things and everything like that. So I appreciated a lot of filmmaking aspects in the show. I think the choreography was pretty decent too. Episode 3 in particular, where his son was captured by the slave hunt, the slave hunters. I saw my mom in the scene, and she was like, "Oh my god, stop! Like, what are you doing?" And I was like,
"The show is brutal.
Yeah, it was rough."
The show is brutal.
I will say I'm looking forward to season 2. I think sort of my gripes with the season are going to be improved, but in general, though, I don't think that the response by critics was warranted. I think they were being way too harsh, and honestly, like, I had my gripes, but all that can be resolved within another 2 seasons. I heard the next 2 seasons are, like, top tier television.
Yeah.
So I look forward to it. Sorry, I took up a lot of time, but
gruesome. It's gruesome. I will say that. Chris, what you been watching, bro?
I just gotta say off the top, I love me a good on-air guilt trip. That was a pro move right there, man. You just gotta dig it in. Hey, remember when I told you? You gotta check that out.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to checking that out too. Now that I also have access to Apple TV, so that should be dope. Haven't even heard of
Yes.
that show besides you mentioning it to me. Like I hadn't heard any buzz besides it. So looking forward to checking that out. But lately, I've been doing a rewatch. Right, sometimes you get settled in, you want to watch something again, and this time I'm watching it with my girlfriend, right? So it's always a fun little storyline to go through. We're watching Death Note again together. I don't know if you guys have ever watched that animated series. But definitely check it out. I think it's a really well done story, like very complex. And if you're into sort of a who done it and sort of trying to figure out, right, like the best way I could describe it is the entire season is basically like a detective on the heels of this mass murderer and trying to figure out how they're doing this and trying to figure out how to put it to an end, right? And just the battle of wits where you see each character's brilliance, right? They're true foils of each other, good and evil, all that good stuff. But just a really good, well done story, and the fact that it's animated sort of comes secondary to me. So please, since both of y'all haven't even checked it out, please check out Death Note. I believe it's still on Netflix. One of the best shows that I've ever seen. Period. Not even just animated, and it's a short one, right? It isn't too long to get into. So love me some Death Note, and been having a blast watching it again.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. I'm gonna have to check that out.
The premise of the show, really quick, just so you could get an idea.
Yeah.
The the main characters was randomly sort of walked upon a journal that he found, and throughout writing some things down and some testing after he realized the powers of it, comes to the understanding that basically how whoever he writes in this book and to whatever specifics he writes in this book, these people will literally die according to what is written. So that's why it is called Death Note, and the ways in which he explores sort of the parameters of this Death Note and his intentions for using it, how those things change over time. It's just such a cool show that really makes you question a lot about humanity and almost like what you would do if you would be in that position, right? So pretty cool concept, and I think really well executed. Please do not watch the live action movie though. That was a shit show to say the least. The animated series is where it's at.
Most definitely. I'll check that out for sure.
Oh yeah.
I've actually Mariah and I've been watching. She got me started on Jane the Virgin, which was originally on the CW. I had heard about it, but I never really like paid attention to it. So no, I'm not checking that out. And a couple months ago, she convinced me. She was like, "No, this is a good show. You need to watch it." I am hooked. I am hooked. And I was trying to think back on the last time I can remember a show being maybe like I think it's like 20 episodes per season or something like that. And I can't remember a show within recent time that did that. Um so it kind of threw me off because I think the episodes it's on Netflix, but I think the episodes are around like roughly like 45 minutes, 45 50 minutes. So I can't remember another show doing that like in modern day times. So I'm on season 2 now. I think midway point, and I can't get enough of it. It's about a telenovela. I think that's how you pronounce it. Um, like a for those who don't know what that is, it's like a soap opera, um, Mexican soap opera, and it's so dramatic and overblown in various ways, in color um and scenarios as well sometimes. But it's actually really intriguing way of telling a story that I didn't think I would actually like. but it's something new and different and kind of refreshing. Um, and I actually find myself kind of like um captivated and engulfed into the characters where I'm just like I'm literally sitting here pissed off like, oh, why would you go and do that, like I'm legitimately engrossed into the story, and it's very interesting. So if you have not watched that, I would suggest that as well. That is a phenomenal show, great comedy, um that's actually very well balanced between comedy and a little bit of drama. Not much action sequences, but it's even a little sprinkle of that in there, for the action lovers as well. So I would suggest watching that. It's a great show. Great show.
I caught the bug during the pandemic too. Watched that whole thing with my
Oh, you
girlfriend as
did?
well. So yeah, really good show. Really good show. I agree. And
Yeah.
one, like you said, that I probably wouldn't have watched had she not have suggested it. And even when
Mm-hmm.
she did, I'm like, do I really want to watch
Yeah.
this? But definitely,
Yeah.
definitely worth the watch.
Yeah. Very funny, and very interesting. So I want to. If look, I told Mariah I would love to name my son Rogelio. That'd
Just
be
rolls. It
amazing.
just rolls.
He just rolls. Rogelio Myers. It just um but yeah, all right. So actually I did want to discuss something with you guys real quick before we get into our feature presentation. Um I noticed that uh there was the news that came out I think last week about the you remember the Twilight films starring Robert Pattinson. Um they're they're rebooting that into a series. Um and Matt and I was actually discussing before we started recording that even like the Harry Potter series is going to be rebooted as well. So kind of want to ask you guys your opinion on that, because like do you think that Hollywood is, how should I say it, that Hollywood is overdoing it with reboots? Like, do you think that it's becoming a bit too much now? Because at first, when I remember seeing reboots like very sparingly, and it seemed to be like, oh, oh, hey, let's see what this person's perspective would be on the story, and it was actually pretty fun to see. But now we're seeing reboots of reboots, like within, I'd say maybe like 8 to 10 years now, and it's so short span of a time, that it feels as if Hollywood has nothing else to do. So do you think that reboots coming in this at this pace? Let me ask you like this: do you think it could possibly hurt the film industry because it's not allowing new writers to come in with new perspectives and new stories? It's just rehashing the same old thing, and we're the thing is we're going to pay to see it. Just look at the Fast and Furious series. Like we're going to pay to go watch it. So why not? Do you think that that's going to end up hurting Hollywood?
Hmm.
Man, I love a good question that answers itself because I just had deja vu all over again. I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember, but we've had this conversation on this show, and
Yeah.
it wasn't even in response like it wasn't this time to a direct reboot. It was just more so like the way these things typically happen. I
Mm-hmm.
agree. I think there's so many original ideas out there. I don't get, well, I don't get it, but I do, right? Like it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense why they do the reboots money wise. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what, like you said, if you're a fan of the series, you're gonna tune in, even if it's to hate watch, right? Like you're gonna tune in to find things to be annoyed about, or you're gonna
Yep.
actually watch it because you want to be involved with it. I get why it makes sense money wise. It's brilliant, right?
Yeah.
It's a built-in fan base. Like, or it's hard to build a fan base for anything nowadays. So if you got something built in to tap into, I mean, it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. But at the end of the day, I don't see the merit in it. I don't see I guess, the execution of it ever being anything close to the original. Like that's what
Yeah.
always frustrates me because it's almost like we're on a ride that we know how it ends, right? Once you've been on Nitro enough times at Six
Mm-hmm.
Flags, by the time you get to that drop, it hits, but it doesn't hit the
Yeah.
same way it did originally. So,
Yeah.
um, in a lot of ways, especially with the series that you mentioned, right? These are series you can't really fuck up, even if you tried, right? Like unless you are really butchering these things and changing the story format, right? So I get why they do it. I think ultimately, like you said, everything is just going to be really tired. Um, when we talk about shows like Wednesday, I think that's different because it's not just the same thing or a reboot of the same thing. It's like reimagining an aspect of it. I hope that that's the direction these things go in. When it's executed that way, I think it is more palatable. But just reboots for the sake of reboots, terrible. Like I don't know if you guys ever taken theater classes, but I've watched so many renditions of Romeo and Juliet. Trash, bro. Absolute trash. And you know what the story is. The story's the same every single time, but yet somehow they just find a way to butcher it over and over again. So I don't like it. I say there's enough original ideas out there to keep things fresh. But it's almost like you can't pass up on it if you're a studio, which sucks.
Yeah. What you got, Matt?
Yeah, I think Chris brought up an interesting point. That isn't um really brought into conversation. That's hate watching. So hate watching is like ironically the best thing a studio has going for it sometimes, because when you have someone who is passionate, who is negatively passionate, and they go out of their way to buy the movie ticket, go out of their way, to tune into the Disney Plus or the HBO Max. I mean, they're giving that show or movie a platform to succeed. And then in turn, the studio in question is going to look at it and say, "Oh, well, I mean, look at our viewership numbers, or oh, look how much box office revenue we got in the first week. Let's go and produce more." You know what I mean? Um, I think, like I said this before, and like we vote for our wallet. I think there's always going to be a market for original movies, and I think oftentimes, not you, Derrick, and not you, Chris, but like a lot of people on the internet tend to complain that there's so much unoriginal content out there, but yet they're the same people who don't go out of their way to watch something original. Like they're the first people to still go to the theater and consume another Marvel movie, or another Fast movie, or another DC movie. Like those movies are always going to be around because ultimately they make the most money for the studios. And in the case of reboots and remakes, I don't understand the logic behind it, especially since, from my perspective at least, I'm not the one making money. I'm the one that's giving them money. So for me, I don't see the reason why I'm gonna waste my time, waste my dollars to watch something that's already been produced in the past. From a studio perspective, that they try to say, oh, it's for the new generation. I mean, the new generation, again, is like they have access to everything now. I mean, we live in 2023, and you can literally find every single Harry Potter movie or every single Twilight movie online. You go on TikTok, if people are still posting the old scenes from the old movies, that'll make you want to go and rent the movie or go on to the next streaming service. So like it just feeds into itself, and it's like, it gets very complicated in that regard too. And I don't know, I really don't understand someone a bit, like from a business standpoint. I guess I understand, like, definitely what Chris was saying, like you gotta sell your merchandise and everything, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's just a matter of them just worrying that original content isn't gonna rack in the dollars, and so they just say, you know what, let's just go back to something that we feel comfortable with and hope that they'll help us out in the long run. So
Yeah. I mean, like I certain reboots I can rock with. Chris gave a great example of Wednesday. It's not a full reboot. It's again a reimagining. Um, I'm I'm okay with reboots every once in a while, but when you continue it over and over again, it's like it's just almost like beating a dead horse. I mean, take Disney for example. They're doing live actions for almost every Disney classic, right? Like we've already known the story of The Lion King.
Refuse to watch that, by the way.
No, that was actually really good though, because it kind of gave a little background on Mufasa and Scar's relationship, which now they're about to come out with the Mufasa live action, which I think will go into that story fully, which I'm okay with that. Right, again, that's kind of a reimagining of a different, of a small portion of that original story. So I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is Moana. Like Moana just came out a couple years ago, and now The Rock is coming out with a live action Moana. Why not just do a sequel?
And for sure, he's the one who came to Disney and
Oh,
pitched
of
that
course, because Black
because it's
Adam
DC.
fizzled
Yep.
out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get it, I understand it. It's just it makes no sense. Lilo and Stitch is coming out, right? I'm not even sure if you guys seen the first images of how Stitch looks, but I mean, whatever, man. I'm not into it. I'm not into it too much because I think we're getting to a point where we're showing that we as an audience don't really care as much as we say we do about original stories. To your point, Matt, because I think if we did, independent films would have more light. Independent writers and directors and actors would get more shine in a lot of areas that they don't get right now, right? So I think that would be it'd just be nice to see more original stories and perspectives because I'm getting tired of seeing these live actions and reboots and stuff like that. Like I don't. Every once in a while it's cool, but every year at this point now we're they're churning them out, and I don't I'm not into it. Peter Pan is coming out, I think this weekend. Peter Pan is coming out, I think, on Disney Plus this weekend. So it's that's another one. We've seen the Peter Pan story multiple times already. So I mean, Pinocchio just came out, I think, last year. So I want to see different stories. I like, especially what Disney has been doing, like with Coco um, and Moana. Like I like those movies coming out and getting the story behind that and Encanto and stuff like that. Like those are great stories. I don't want to see live actions for everything. Like I think if you're gonna come out with another movie, come out with a sequel. But also, again, I don't think everything needs a sequel. They're coming out with Frozen Part 3, which I don't think needs to happen. The second one sucked. You have the next Toy Story that's coming out. I'm all right with it, I guess. Like just whatever. I don't care. It's not. I don't think we need it, but I'll go see
Who is
it.
it now? Andy's grandson? Like who
I
who is this? Who is this now?
It's I think the new girl's name is Betty, if I'm not mistaken. Um the girl that Andy gave his toys away to. So now we're following her story. To me that makes more sense in terms of like telling the story to a new generation. You know what I'm saying? That makes sense. Do I like it? Not necessarily, but I can rock with that. I can buy that. But a new generation needing a story every what 5 years makes no sense to me. Why? Why? What's the point? So they're probably not even watching it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
that's the
especially when they're
crazy part.
so badly done. Like I've seen a couple of these, and I'm not gonna air nobody out right now, but you get
Yeah.
you get like 30 minutes in, right? And you're like, am I watching a fucking porno right now? Like, is this a
Yeah,
caricature of the original? Like, what the
yeah.
fuck is this? So yeah, what you're lacking in creativity, you really have to make up for in execution, and a lot of times they fall short there too. So it's just
Yeah.
a shit show.
And
Yeah.
even the Harry Potter reboot is so illogical to me. Um, but I don't know. It's logical. It's illogical. So, fuck J.K. Rowling. Number one. I mean, she's a transphobic bitch. I'm just gonna say outright. She's a transphobic bitch. Fuck you. But, um, obviously, like as someone who's like a fan, who's still like a fan of the series, is like it's disheartening too, because like in cases like that, like what more can you possibly do that the movies
Mm,
didn't? You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
mm,
there are a few elements they removed, and technically you can expound upon that within a series format, but you it reminds me of like I think I've told you this, Derrick, and I told you this, Chris. Is like it reminds me of like the new Daredevil series. It's like, yeah, the new series is gonna come out. Maybe it'll be good in its own right, but the original is always gonna be at the forefront of your mind as you're watching. At least to me. If I end up watching the Harry Potter series, that'll probably be the case. I'm gonna be like, okay, like I know what happens, you know. I read the
Let me
books
ask you about that.
previously, you know.
Let me ask you about that real quick because like the films, I just watched the Harry Potter series during the pandemic. That was my first time watching.
What?
Chris, I
What?
know. Listen, my parents didn't let me watch Harry Potter
Oh
when it was
yeah, I
out.
remember you telling me that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
You're not a
yeah.
wizard, Derrick.
No. No. So I just watched them when the pandemic hit, and it was a great series. But am I mistaken, or were those films not already following those books?
Mm, no, they pretty much were. I mean, so I hate the Half-Blood Prince actually. And that's only the movie because
Hmm.
they really like stripped down a lot of Voldemort's backstory. I just remember like
Okay.
disliking it as a whole.
Okay.
Order of the Phoenix stripped out a lot of Order of Phoenix. I hate Order of the Phoenix. That's literally my I remember like my least favorite Harry Potter book. So I honestly the fact that it was 2 hours made me happy, so it could be over. Um, and then John actually he hates Goblet of Fire because they took out a few elements. So it was a lot of this taking out elements, but it wasn't like any significant like outright significant changes off the top of my head. It followed all the books pretty closely for the most part.
Okay.
And
And
Because
that's
every
also
everything.
season,
understandable too, right? Like
yeah.
there's so much things in the book on top of
Yeah.
what your imagination does to it, right? So
Mhm.
I always feel like no matter what, whenever you're remaking or rebooting any sort of book, well, I'm saying remaking, whenever you're adapting any
Mhm.
sort of book, it always falls short in that way because no matter how much you can actually fit in there, there's always going to be details that were important to character development or important to you as the
Mhm.
reader,
Yeah.
that definitely get left out. So I feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because every
And
season of this series, they said, is going to be one book. So every season is
mm,
going to follow a different book. So that's where I got kind of confused because I'm like, I thought the movies did exactly that. I would have been okay with let's follow Harry's kids storyline and see what goes on with that. Like
yeah.
that's kind of what I thought we were gonna see
And just to be clear, it's going to
Yeah.
be a TV show, like not
on
movies.
HBO.
That
Yeah,
hmm
sounds good then, actually.
yeah.
I that
Yeah.
makes me more optimistic, right? Because now you have more time to get all those
Mhm.
gritty details in there. And you could also just add some shit too, right? Like I know people don't
Mhm.
like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I'm sure if you have the blessing of she who shall not be named, you'll be fine. So I feel like it gives you a good opportunity to reimagine things. So I'm not entirely shitting on that one, but even then, I just feel like David Radcliffe and that it's a
Yeah.
franchise, right? So no matter
Yeah.
what, you're just sort of gonna be under that shadow.
And it just it sucks too, because like I mean I don't regret what I said about Jackie Rowling. Like that's literally literally what she is. You know what I mean? That's what sucks is like, okay, I hate Jackie Rowling, so like, I think it sucks because like Harry Potter is like such a huge part of my childhood, but I don't feel like knowingly supporting something, like with her so involved. And she's a shit writer too. She's actually not that good of a writer. Like the Harry Potter books, like they're pretty decent, but they have a lot of problems, like a lot. Like I'm not talking about just from storytelling. I'm talking about like from racial stereotypes to literal like underlying themes of slavery that are mocked in the book. Um, Certain elements that are like are offensive to the Jewish, like it runs deeper than that. So that's why it's like all that in mind is like making me like not want to like convince it. It's a whole thing. Like it's really
Wow.
bad. Like it's really
Wow.
really bad. That I didn't realize when I was reading the books originally. You know, um. So that's why it's like, why am I like I'm not gonna knowingly like watch the show. Like I like all that's gonna be in my mind. I'll be like, You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna watch it and get enjoyment out of it. Like, for context, she literally named one of her first Asian character something Chung. That was literally the first Asian character she named. Like, a lot of like problems like that. And Hermione literally tried to stop like a Goblin rebellion, who like were facing off against like racial prejudices, and she literally got laughed at in the book. There's really a point like where they laughed at her for trying to stop a Goblin rebellion. Like, there's a lot of moments like that, and it's like it's bad. It's really bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I know she's supposed to be consulting on the series. I don't think she's going to be like heavily involved, but she will be involved with the series in some way, shape, or form. Which I know she wasn't involved with the video game. So I like that's also kind of like where I was kind of thinking maybe they'll bring some elements from the game into the series or whatever. That's why I was just hoping that if they were going to do this, this would just be with Harry's kid or children, whoever. I don't know how many kids he ended up having, but follow their storyline and see what happens. You know, that's what I thought was going to end up taking place. But I mean, I'm all right with it. I want to see, you know, if it can actually be better. They're gonna have a lot of scrutiny if there's even like halfway measure to the films though.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
I think
that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, like I said, this is like just so many like I said, I didn't realize it. Like, just so many problems with the books. Like, I'm not talking about, like I said, not from the story. It's just so much that she was getting away with. You know what I mean? Like, maybe knowingly or unknowingly, and it's like in hindsight, it becomes so clear, and it's like, Jesus, like I was a kid reading these books for the most part. I'm not gonna realize like half the stuff back then, you know. And now it's like, all right, like, you know, let's say I watch the series, which I don't plan on doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm definitely not gonna enjoy it for really all those reasons too. Damn, this conversation got really fucking serious.
It did. It did. Yeah, man. But yeah, I think I'm interested in seeing where Hollywood goes with reboots, because I would love to see them slow down and actually go after some writers that have original thoughts and original stories and better better ideas than just reboots. You know what I'm saying? I would love to see that take place, but I guess we'll have to just wait and see what takes place, you know.
But, and I can't wait to see the thumbnail for this video. It's just our faces on that meme, like fuck J.K. Rowling. All my homies hate J.K. Rowling. Like, I need that. I need that thumbnail. I'm wishing it into existence right now. So
if I had the time to make it, I'll make it. Yeah, man. But all right, so we're gonna take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll get into the discussion of 2023 Apple original Tetris, starring Taron Egerton. We'll be right back.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Dwayne from Past the Ox and Life's a Botch podcast. I'm coming to you with a real dope advertisement if you got a moment. Can we do that? Peep this. Yo, you tired of that uncomfortable feeling with your undergarments? You know what I'm talking about. Like, literally having to adjust so it gets real comfortable in between the, you know, the real safe space. Or maybe just wedgies from just going underneath, you know what I mean? All that. Let's keep it in 100. Y'all know how I'm feeling. Y'all know how that feeling goes. Well, I want to introduce to you the ultimate solution coming from the #1 premium and fit athletic wear just for you. I'm talking about none other than Champ #1 Boxers. Champ #1 Boxers is a black-owned underwear brand, okay? They literally specify in giving you the most top-notch, high-quality, premium, adjustable and fittable and totally comfortable undergarment wear that is just for you. Not only is it something that you can wear, feel good in, feel confident in, and love, but it's also high quality, feels good, and most importantly, it is definitely fashionable, okay? Comes in a different, wide variety of so many different styles and themes to these undergarments. Something to make you look good, feel good, and swag real good in the process, all right? So, again, did I get to mention that this is also a black-owned brand? It's a black-owned brand, y'all. So if nothing else, definitely go support that 100%. So what I want to do is I want to tell you, head on over to OTS Media Co. on all social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. If you go over, you click the link in the bios, it'll take you straight to the Champ Number One Boxers website. You can check out all their styles, you can check out their bundle deals, you can check out why this brand exists, what it's all about, and trust me when I say you do not want to miss out on the types of opportunities going on right now on the site. Champ Number One Boxers. Make sure you do it for the champ in your life if you ain't already doing it for yourself, champ. All right? Champ Number One Boxers. Make sure you go cop those. All right? All right.
Welcome back, you beautiful people. We are here to talk about the Apple TV original film Tetris, and it is a story of how one of the world's most popular video games found its way to players around the globe. Businessman Hank Rogers and Tetris inventor Alexei joined forces in the USSR, risking all to bring Tetris to the masses. And of course, it stars the great and amazing Taron Egerton in the lead role. So yeah, I mean, to start off with, never knew the story was a real thing.
Same.
Never really was a big fan of Tetris, and never thought that, you know, Tetris as a whole could, be a good movie. And it turned out to be quite the case, at least from my perspective. But I'm itching to hear what Derrick and Chris had to say, about the story and everything like that. So let's go ahead and kick it off.
Real quick.
Because we had that same reaction. Can we talk about this first?
Yeah.
You play video games, right? Right, Matt?
Yeah.
You're a gamer, right?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Tetris is foundational to video game play. Like you know what? You know how you can tell someone that's actually played Tetris and was actually good at it? Watch how they load the dishwasher. If you can't load the dishwasher properly and get everything to fit,
packing that equipment van, it all fits together. Yeah.
Yep. We're packing up to move from one place to another, whatever. If you can't fit certain things into certain, like, they were horrible in Tetris. Like, there's just no way. But I used to love playing Tetris, and I didn't even know what I was doing when I first played it. It was captivating, and I think that's honestly that was the thing about this movie that I actually really loved, because it kind of brought me back to that place when I didn't know what I was doing when I was playing the game, of just like somehow being mesmerized of moving blocks to fit into different positions, and that's what I love that this movie captivated that, because when I first kind of heard about it, I was like, I don't know. I don't know how you do a movie on Tetris. But I was very intrigued to see how they went about this, because I love, this is kind of like talking about what we were talking about before the break, but it's an original story, right? We've never seen the making of Tetris and how it became this worldwide phenomenon. And I'm pretty sure, I'm willing to bet the majority of people that ever played the game did not know the story to begin with. So I loved it. I love that aspect of it, is being able to see where the origin of something that was so simple grow into something so massive. So
that's interesting. I agree with you. I feel like I have a love-hate relationship with this movie for different reasons, which I will get into. But I think that feeling, right, that nostalgia of like experiencing it for the first time came across so well. Like just the Taron Egerton's character. I'm the worst with names. Okay, I'm just gonna be you're asking me to remember their real name and then the state. It's too much. Okay, but I was really, like, I really love the beginning parts of this movie, just sort of setting the scene, and they really did a good job of capturing the excitement about it, because I'm interested to hear a little bit more about why you're not so hype about it, or didn't have those memories. But it is a very fundamentally basic thing, right? Especially when you consider that in today's context. But back then, super ahead of its time. And obviously, I wasn't a part of that era, right? I was nowhere near a part of that era. But it was still a game that the first time I got it, just very intuitive, and the way, like you said, the way it makes you think and the way you feel when you get it right. Like I think that's what is so rewarding about the game. It isn't fun, right? It isn't this particularly exciting action filled game. But especially when you're doing things and they're falling into place the right way, and you're seeing things coming the way you need to, like you there's a real momentum to that. So I love that aspect of it. I like nonfiction movies, right? Where they're trying to bring to life a story that is true, right? But
Right.
when you're doing depictions like this, I think there's certain things that you cannot get away with. And I think one of the main ones that really bothered me in this, and I'm interested to hear how you guys feel about this, was the sort of, I don't know what else to call them, the title cards as transitions, right? So level 1, level 2, level 3,
Oh
level
yes.
4.
Yes.
Um, I the graphics look nice, right? I can't hate on that. The way they put them there and the way it looks, it's all cool, 8-bit stuff, right? But I was particularly annoyed by that because when you're trying, in my opinion, to get the story out about something that is true, in my opinion, the last thing you need to do is remove that immersion from the audience. When you're dealing with such a like heavy topic, the USSR and the way the government was literally going about handling this man's business for him. Like these are all very dark things. And I think the way the story was moved along was very like I don't know how else to say it, is lazy and uncreative. There's so many different ways you can make those same exact transitions without this fake, like, because there is no levels. I mean, there is levels in Tetris too, right? But like there is no level to the story. Like there's no next chapter. It all happened, right? So why can't you just let it happen? If you needed a transition, make a transition, right? Like you don't need to. Nothing gets me more mad, and maybe this is a film school rant, right? Maybe this is something about me being someone who went to film school, but like if you put in a title card in your movie and for any other reason than being ironic, like you're being lazy. And that's just honestly how I feel about it. So that was something that really took me out of this movie in a lot of ways. I mean, it made all the stuff with his family feel different to me, right? Like I just wasn't a fan of that. I think and that's why I'm so annoyed by it, because I liked it. Like I thought that everything else was good, and learning this story for the first time in a way that was unique and original was really cool. I think the villains in this story were really well played. Like all the people that you're not supposed to like are scummy people that you're like, oh yeah, like he did it. I know why you were casted in this one, because you're a real, especially like Maxwell's son, right? Like Robert. That they got the perfect guy to play his son,
Perfect.
and then even his father too, right? Just the way he comes off. I think they were spot on as far as making an accurate depiction, which I loved, and I enjoyed that part of it. But when you do things like that and you sort of take the audience out of the actual story, which is what you're trying to get across, for me that just blew mine. So I'm interested to hear how you guys feel about title cards in movies.
Derrick, you wanna take that one?
Yeah, I never, to be honest, I don't think I've ever really thought about that aspect of it. Um, I took it as with this movie, I took it um as show as progressing the story through a video game perspective. Like you at the end of level 1, you face, you know, whatever obstacle, you overcome it to get to the next level, right? Um, and I kind of saw that playing out through the movie, especially with Terrence's character, Hank. I think that it was very interesting that that's how it progressed. So that's how I looked at it. I never thought about how you just explained it, and I actually agree with you on that. How it can be lazy to transition that way, especially when the game elements aren't like in the film. So, for example, with Ready Player One, there were game elements throughout the film to play into that type of transition to make that transition make more sense, right? Which they didn't have that. I don't remember that having that in that film, but if they were to, it would have made more sense, right? This one didn't have that because you're not like it. That's where I think for me I didn't like it in a different way because those game elements of like whether it's sound effects or whether it's the way it's shot, cinematography or whatever, it, it it didn't play into those transitions, so those transitions didn't work at all to progress a story the way the movie would have just done perfectly fine without. I agree completely with you on that. It's just that my interpretation of it was a little different because I was thinking about this problem. He beat it, get to the next level, beat that problem, get to the next level, beat that. So I kind of looked at it like that, but now you say that, I completely agree with you on that. It makes a lot of sense. Um, I think they could have definitely done without. I agree with you on that. They could have definitely done without that because it just didn't tie into the movie thematically. Like it just wasn't there. Um, but I think all the other elements in terms of writing and casting, I agree. I think everything else was very well done, very well thought out. Um, and especially with progressing the story. Now, I mean, of course, I don't know what's exaggerated in the story or not. Um, but it felt like it was, if I had to like this, if I go to research the story of it of Tetris, it would feel as the way I watched it feels like it could very well be that that's just exactly how it played out. It was very true to the story, so I can appreciate that very much. So I agree with you on that. The transitions weren't necessary. They just weren't. So yeah, that's
And
just
it's
all
not
it is.
like I even hated the graphics. Like I'm not trying
Yeah,
to be a Debbie Downer. Like I like them
yeah,
for what they were, but
yeah.
I just feel like no matter what the movie is, like if you're really telling a story through narrative, you should be able to find a creative way that's thought out and being on set, right? Like in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
that's if you ever see a title card, I promise you that was not in the script. I promise
Right,
you that
right,
was
right.
not how they intended to shoot it. Like I promise you,
Mm-hmm.
they just
Mm-hmm.
couldn't figure it out, and they're like, you know what? We need to find a way to bridge this. It isn't working with what we shot. Let's
Yeah,
just throw a fucking title card in, and
yeah.
that just no matter what the movie is, I'm gonna be annoyed about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I once again, I ain't trying to be too much of a Debbie Downer because I actually thought this movie was very well done on all fronts. Like nothing else took me out of it besides that. So I
Yeah.
know it's a little insignificant thing to be harping on, but man, the worst, the worst.
But that's how they opened the film up too, right? Like it opened up like that to transition to him being in this convention center, you know, I guess shopping his game out, and that's where I will say that did throw me off in the beginning. I was like, what's going on here? Um, but then I quickly forgot about that transition, and I was like, all right, cool, I can get into the story. But I will say it did take you out of the story for a slight second when those transitions popped up. I agree with you on that one. It is very interesting, but that's really the only complaint you can have about this movie. I actually would not mind seeing other adaptations of how other video games came into play. Especially when you're talking about the 90s too, because that's when we was the early 90s when consoles started coming out, like more so. um I would like to see how that came about where and Nintendo took over and stuff like that, and then of course you got Sony coming into the play with the PlayStation and stuff. I would love to see what that story was as well, because I love being able to see how Game Boy came out. That was amazing. That took me back to my childhood of playing Frogger, right? Like it was very interesting, very very interesting. Yeah.
So how did you feel about this, Max? I just went on a butchering spree over here.
No, you're good. Honestly, I think so uh, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't really bothered to be honest. I think I kind of watched it on a day where I wasn't in the mood of critiquing anything. So maybe so maybe I think in hindsight though, it it probably was a bit immersion breaking, right? I mean, we're sort of set in this in reality story, and then all of a sudden we see 8-bit characters flying across the world. Um,
Mhm.
I think so, similar to what you both said, there could have been more organic transitions. Um, I will say though, I think even though it sort of injected this, um, that video game aesthetic, I think one of the effective uses of it was early on when Hank is sort of um, explaining how he came across Tetris for the first time, and you saw the blocks forming in the back of his head to show how he became so enamored with something. I think that was a very interesting choice. Other than that, I do agree. I think you remove those transitions altogether. You know, the story can still progress the same, obviously, and so I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, that's pretty much
And the
the
film
thing
as a
about that.
whole, right? Like, I know where I'm tipping my hand here, but why
Yeah.
don't you try to start us off on our 5-star rating? Like, how did you feel about the film, and where does it land for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably as high as a 4, but I probably do like a 3.5. I think this was a perfect popcorn flick. I think there are plenty of engaging moments throughout the film. Um, I reflect back on how the KGB was obviously um monitoring him as soon as he entered um the Russian building. I thought that sort of the um behind the scenes conversations between him and the company, revealing how he apparently stole the rights of Tetris was very compelling. I think the relationship between Hank and Alexei was done fairly well. Um, I think the cinematography was fairly decent as well, minus a few shots that were. There's one shot in particular near the end where you could definitely tell the actors were in front of a green screen. Um, you know, yeah, I don't know. It's one of those movies that is just like very like chill vibes. Nothing really, outright wrong with it per se. It's just is it something I'll see again? Probably not, but I don't regret watching it. So
Yeah.
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 Very fair, very fair. What about you, Derek?
Yeah. Whew. Um, I think I'll give it a 4. I mean, it's not um is I can't complain about it. I don't feel like I wasted my time watching it. I'll put it like that. I felt like I learned something. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the acting as well. I forgot her name, but the lady that was playing his Hank's translator. Um, to be honest, and I probably should have seen it coming. I didn't see that twist coming. So I enjoyed it. I was immersed. I'll put it like that. I was immersed into the story, and I can appreciate that from anything, whether it's any genre that has an original story. I'm with it, So I'll give it a 4. I think it was a very solid movie. I think it was a very solid movie. I think Taron is going to be someone that's we're going to be seeing a lot from moving forward. I think he's got a lot of promise. Whether he actually does get cast as Wolverine or not moving forward into the MCU. I guess it's we'll just wait and see. I think he would be perfect for that role. But other than that, I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the movie. There's nothing, I can't complain about it too much outside of those transitions. Very, very well done.
I do want to add something else. I think I'm so glad you mentioned Taron. I think Taron is such a phenomenal performer. Um, and I think if they don't cast him in this role, I won't be nearly as engaged. He has this infectious energy about him, and he has so much charisma that you can't help but that you don't necessarily want to look away from the screen, and you can definitely tell that he approaches his craft with a great deal of passion, and he obviously works well with his co-stars as well. There's something about Terrence's presence on screen that is very riveting, and I think you even see obviously in a lot of the initial scenes where, like for example, the KGB was blackmailing him and faxed him a picture of him kissing his translator. For instance, you saw sort of the emotion on his face, him sort of lashing out on his wife and his daughter. Um, basically saying how like how do you care, like why should I care about some stupid dance when like Tetris is everything, and there are definitely a lot of like compelling moments that helped out with the performance. So figured I'd say that too.
Yeah, to continue on that same train, I think I agree with everything you guys said. I hope I'm not being too crazy here by saying this, but I feel like I get a young Leo vibe from Taron. I feel like he has a good edge to him, to a lot of his characters in general. And like you said, all the charisma, everything comes off very well. I think he can play a very good range of different roles. Um, and doesn't have to, like, it doesn't feel like he's going outside of himself either. So I think he's going to be phenomenal in a lot of other stuff to come. As far as my rating for the film, um, I think I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars. Once again, I'm just being a fucking hater here. I think beyond like just what I said about the transitions, I think a lot of the stuff that took me out too was I felt like some of the things with his family and some of the elements with the Soviet Russia part of it, like I felt like they didn't fully lean into either of those themes because it was almost like you had to get out a certain amount of information right across the whole length of the movie. So it
Yeah.
felt like a lot of those things, yeah, it made sense, the natural progression and how we got there, but I still feel like there was ways that could have been fleshed out better, right? That it's a natural progression versus we're literally like, once again, I'm in the world of show me don't tell me, and I feel like a lot of this movie was people finding out things that other sorry, not people, the audience, us, were finding out things that all the other characters did not know. And the way we would find out isn't even because we saw it happen. It's just literally being told exactly what happened and why it's significant. So personally, I didn't like that aspect of it. But once again, being super nitpicky, I agree with everything you guys said as far as it being a good watch. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed myself, and I would recommend other people to watch it. But once again, this is how being a filmmaker taints you, right? Your experience is tainted. But yeah, 3.5 is solid on my scale at least. So yeah, I enjoyed the movie, and I definitely would recommend people to watch it for sure.
Yeah. Do you think this would have been better as a series? Because I had that thought cross my mind when I was nearing like an hour and 10. I was thinking it crossed my mind, but I wasn't sure if any of you guys thought the story would have been better told as a series as opposed to a 2 hour movie. Less than 2 hour movie, technically.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I think I actually thought the pacing was pretty fine.
Yeah.
The way it was with the film. I think more complicated stories, because this wasn't a complicated story. This was just like bing bang boom, like so I don't really, for me, I don't think it would have played out too well as a series because it's so simplistic, unless it's going to be like a limited series type of thing when you're talking about like 30 minutes or so per episode. um where it's not necessary um to go too long per episode. But aside from that, nah, I thought pace wise, it was okay for it was very good for a film. Very good. I was fine with that. I I think I think certain writers do themselves a disservice by writing a film that should be a series or writing a series that should be a film. You know, I think a lot of writers and producers do themselves a disservice because they end up messing up what's a good story by either doing too much or too little. You know, so I thought this was just right, and they had the pacing down pat for it for me. So that was good.
That's a good. Yeah, I definitely didn't think about that either. I think I can't say I would prefer it, right? Because at the end of the day, I still feel like it's a good movie. Um, but I do feel like they could have been a little more historically accurate, as well as
Mm-hmm.
be able to expand on those themes and make it not feel as like heavy-handed, right? Like it went from we have arrived and you are on a tour, you don't have a visa, you're a tourist,
Yeah.
to now we are blackmailing your family within like a matter of 15 minutes. And I
Yeah.
understand how it gets there, right? Especially that time period and what they were dealing with. Like I get it.
Yeah.
But we didn't see that progression. So once again, I feel like they could have benefited in that way. Am I mad at it? Not really. I think it works as a film. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's interesting. I think maybe it could have been better as a TV series. Who knows? But
Sometimes
Especially if you
that.
tell the story from a different character's perspective per episode. That probably would have been a way they would have gone with that
Yeah.
if they did it.
Yeah. But sometimes that under 2 hour movie, especially I think lately, all of us collectively, right? I mean, we've been watching TV shows and you know close
Mm-hmm.
to 3 hour movies. I think it's a breath of fresh air to just go and watch something that's under 2 hours. You know,
Mm-hmm.
good
Mm-hmm.
pacing and you know don't regret it in the end. So
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree with that. Well, I think that's probably the end of this. Game over.
about to get Chris the
it's
switches.
the end of this level.
Yeah.
Get
In
the
this level. Yeah.
yeah get the title card in.
Yeah. But yeah, let's go ahead give our socials again and call it a day.
Yeah, it's gonna be Matt underscore T29 over on Instagram. As always, thank you so much for the support. Love doing this podcast with these beautiful gentlemen over here, and looking forward to doing more and more episodes as the weeks, as the months, as the years go by. I really, like I said, I really love doing it, and like I said, appreciate you guys.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Labor of love indeed. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Negadong MMA. I recently, for sure, right? We've passed the threshold. We have hit 500.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate all the love and support. Been really feeling it a lot lately, and feels good. So let's keep it going, right? That's the only way to look at this. You got to keep going up, right? So thanks for all the support and continue to do so, right? Because it only fuels our fire. We love doing this either way. I do it if
Yes, sir.
nobody watches an episode, right? But when
Oh
we
yeah.
get that interaction from you guys too, and we get to feel your enthusiasm for it, it only feeds into ours even more. So looking forward to hearing you guys' thoughts and maybe even some suggestions, right? We'd love to get some movie
Yeah.
suggestions or TV series for us to watch and get into. Um, but like Matt said, looking forward to continuing to doing that. And then you could catch my Instagram at Chris Negadon _ as well.
Yes, sir. And one day I'm going to get these two on Facebook. If it's the last thing I do. But yeah, you can follow me at Derrick underscore OTS. That's DERRICK, the black way to spell it. But most importantly, follow the brand at OTS Media Co. All social media platforms, OTS Media on YouTube. If you're watching this, you're already there. So please, if you have not done so, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, so you get updated when we post new content. The last couple of weeks have been kind of rough because I've personally been out of it. So, we're bringing the shows back because my schedule is about to start loosening up a little bit with work. So, you'll start seeing us a little more frequently. So I apologize for that. That just kind of came out of the blue, how that hit. But yeah, especially fans coming back. We're gonna be doing a episode battle. It's gonna be me versus Chris Robinson, J. Cole versus Wale. So we'll be getting the promo out there for that really soon. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you guys again for watching and or listening. And we will catch you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.